The accelerated procedure for skilled workers is a special procedure which allows people who want to come to Germany to work to obtain a visa more quickly than usual. It is the declared goal of German immigration policy to attract workers with a specific skill set from abroad. The idea behind that is that it will not be possible to fill all jobs with people who are already residing in Germany, among other things, due to the demographic development. To facilitate migration by skilled workers from abroad, Germany has adopted the Skilled Workers Immigration Act. This law offers different pathways for skilled workers from outside of the EU to come to Germany to work. But many employers and companies who are seeking skilled workers have criticized the act, or more precisely, its implementation, in particular because the formalities which are required to get somebody to Germany take too long. If someone from outside the EU wants to come to Germany, they basically need two things: a visa and a residence permit which allows them to work. Many employers criticized that this procedure was deterring for people who were interested in working in Germany. To address this criticism, Germany introduced the accelerated procedure for skilled workers. This procedure streamlines the process of obtaining a visa and a residence permit. The core element is that the future employer is entrusted with the procedure. The person who wants to work in Germany gives the employer power of attorney, and the employer can take care of the formalities on his behalf. In addition to that, the competence for dealing with the applications has been centralized. In different regions, special migration offices have been established which are competent to handle requests under the accelerated procedure for skilled workers. So, how does this work? The first step is you must find an employer. The procedure is designed for persons who already have an employer. So, people who would like to come to Germany and make use of the accelerated procedure need to find a job first. There are possibilities to come to Germany to work if you do not have a job yet, but in this case you cannot use the accelerated procedure for skilled workers. Once you have a job offer from your future employer, you agree with him that you are going to make use of the accelerated procedure. Then, you give the employer a power of attorney. This power of attorney gives your future employer the authority to carry out the procedure to obtain a visa and residence permit on your behalf. So finding an employer is the first step. The second step is you make an agreement with your employer and give him power of attorney. Once you have a job offer from your future employer, you agree with him that you are going to make use of the accelerated procedure. Then, you give the employer a power of attorney. This power of attorney gives your future employer the authority to carry out the procedure to obtain a visa and residence permit on your behalf. The third step is your future employer takes care of the procedure. The employer enters an agreement with the Central Immigration Authority, which is in charge of the region in which he is residing. In that agreement, the employer states that he will carry out the procedure for you, and the Central Immigration Authority states that it agrees to that and will carry out its part of the procedure. That means that the Central Immigration Authority will talk directly with your employer to speed up the process. The employer then initiates the procedure by submitting a request to issue a residence permit for you. With this request, he must submit a number of documents. They include a scanned copy of your passport, a CV, and, importantly, copies of your certificates and diplomas in original language and translated into German. The copies of your diplomas and certificates are required to check your qualifications. As I have said in the beginning, the accelerated procedure for skilled workers was adopted to facilitate the immigration of persons who have a certain skill set. There are different pathways for persons with different skills, and for each of these pathways there are different requirements in terms of qualifications. For example, there are different requirements for people in the IT sectors than for medical doctors. When your future employer carries out the procedure for you in the context of the accelerated procedure, he requests for you a specific type of visa and residence permit. Before issuing this visa and residence permit, the relevant German authorities need to check if you meet the requirements in terms of your qualifications. This is why copies of your diplomas are required. The Central Immigration Authority does not check your qualifications on its own. There is another authority which is in charge of that. In most cases, that is the Central Office for Foreign Education. The Central Office for Foreign Education is involved in most cases in which people seek to come to Germany as skilled workers, not only in the context of the accelerated procedure. You can also contact them directly, and in some cases you have to. But when they respond to requests by the Central Immigration Office, they are much faster than when they respond to direct requests. That is another element which makes the accelerated procedure faster than the ordinary procedure. The Central Office for Foreign Education checks your diplomas and certificates. This check may to two different results. Either your qualification meets the requirements for the requested residence permit or they do not. If your formal qualifications do not quite meet the standard for the requested visa and residence permit, the Central Office for Foreign Education will issue a so-called deficit notice. This statement reflects to which extent and in what way your formal qualification lacks. In many cases, this still opens a possibility to come to Germany. You just have to agree with your employer which measures you can take to bring your qualification up to the required level. There are specific visa and residence permits for that. For example, in the context of a recognition partnership, I have made a video on that. If your formal qualifications are sufficient, the Central Office for Foreign Education issues a confirmation to that effect. The procedure can continue with that. In some cases, the Federal Employment Agency must be involved too. If that is the case, the Central Immigration Office will request the necessary documents and information from your employer and liaise with the Federal Employment Agency to obtain their approval. Once the Central Immigration Office has collected the necessary documents and approvals, it will issue a preliminary approval. By that, it states that the request for residence permit will be granted. The Central Immigration Office will inform the German embassy at your place of residence that you will apply for a visa and that your request should be approved. The fourth step is that you request a visa. For that, you need to go to the German embassy in your country of residence. When the German embassy in your country of residence has obtained the preliminary approval, it is legally obliged to give you an appointment quickly, usually within 3 weeks. The fifth step is that you travel to Germany and request a residence permit. With the visa, you travel to Germany. You request a residence permit at the local immigration office. Again, the Central Immigration Office will give them advance notice. The local immigration office is supposed to give you a quick appointment. It will approve your request on the basis that the necessary checks have already been carried out by the Central Immigration Office. And the last step is that you work in Germany and hopefully live happily ever after. If you're interested in working in Germany or in starting a business in Germany, feel free to book a consultation. The link is in the show notes below.